This is a special presentation for NightRide FM.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome everyone here to the 80s Guy channel. My name is Dennis G, and I am here talking with none other than Jesse Bishop, also known as Street Cleaner. What's going on, man?
Oh, yeah, Hogan, you better believe it. Oh, I can't help myself. I just have to do that every time.
That was a good one, man. A very good impression.
As a little macho man, yeah.
Oh,
I wish I had that deep macho man voice. If I got to pick like my X-Men superpower, it would just be Macho Man's voice. Like he has the power to turn his voice into Macho Man's voice.
He does. He has like the greatest wrestling voice in the entire world.
There's literally no evidence of him ever speaking other ways. Like he's always full intensity. Like
he's
like,
on 100%.
Yeah, there's even a video of like him at his wedding where he's just there like, "Hi, Macho Man, yeah. I take you, Elizabeth, oh yeah. Ooh, to be my lawfully wed true sweetheart, yeah, wife, yeah. That do us part. Bring the rise to the top."
I gotta go back to those days, man. When wrestling mattered and nothing else mattered. You know, you didn't have this COVID crap. It was just like you got wrestling and video games and Nintendo. That's it.
That's it. That's all you had. I mean, shit was going on, but we just weren't paying attention.
We didn't know. We had no clue. We were just happy. You know, Friday night, or what is it? The Royal Rumble.
Yeah, like the pay-per-view
Royal
Rumble.
Yeah, the pay-per-view things. Which I don't know how I ended up watching those things, because I couldn't afford that stuff.
I had a neighbor who could descramble pay-per-view stuff. Because remember, like, it was always being piped to your house. You could always hear it. You just couldn't see it.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Then you had to pay, and they would unscramble it for you for a period of time.
Or you could, like, just, wiggle your eyes, and you kind of, like, see through the lines every now and then.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's how I used to watch porn. Just, like, look through
exactly.
squiggly lines, and, like, I saw a boob.
So that's actually my backdrop for my live set last year when I was on tour in November.
Oh, nice.
I had video synced up to my set, so during one of my songs, I had a song that was kind of slow and dirty. It's an unreleased track, and it's just a slow, kind of dirty song. And in the background would be scrambled adult films, you know. So the way it looked all scrambled back in the 90s.
Oh my god!
And it was just that. So you couldn't actually make out what was going on, but you just could see the undulating and stuff. It was part of trying to build that aesthetic for that. Trying to get kind of creepy and grimy and make that moment a little uncomfortable for folks.
That's what it's all. Yeah. That's what music's all about, man. Making people uncomfortable.
Yeah. Some people want to make you fall in love. Some people want to make you feel things. That's kind of what you want to make people feel uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah.
But you got a really cool vibe going. I mean, like, you are the street cleaner, man. You have this whole character that is just amazing. I seen you at Neon, and of course we saw you at the bootleg in San Diego. That we're still trying to figure out who stole those tapes, and we don't know how. Honest to goodness,
I don't even know how that came into existence. I don't know how you guys got that.
It just landed on our doorstep, and we're like, well,
yeah,
shoot, we got to play it. I mean, come on, street cleaner. So we'll find him eventually. Yeah. But yeah, you have such a cool image on stage, and we'll get to your live performances and everything like that, but just your whole persona is just like so super cool. I mean, it just reminds me of the old throwback days of those old 80s movies, fighting crime and cleaning up the streets. You seem to nail it, which is just amazing.
That was like the thing in the 80s is everything had to be like comic book personified, you know, like every movie and TV show and everything had to have like a over the top extreme personification, you know, like you watch like Death Wish, you know, like, and people just think, oh, Charles Bronson, immediately you think of that character or that archetype of person, you know. And other movies like The Wraith or whatever, you know, they create these mysterious like characters in these films. It's something that the torch is being carried now by like Marvel and DC and all that, but I mean, it's much more corporate, I guess you could say. I mean, I'm sure it's corporate back then, but to a lesser degree.
There was more experimentation, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, I don't feel like they really workshopped things as much as they do now. Now, by the time you see something, it's already been stamped and approved by a million different focus groups, and, you know, and it's been so watered down by homogeny and stuff, you know. But I feel like back in the 80s, there was a lot more, you know, showrunners that took risks and a lot more projects that were spearheaded by one person's idea or a smaller group's idea. And then, yeah, the whole personification of characters, you know, in films versus how things are put together now, you know, like, I mean, you think of movies from the 80s, you know, think of the original Terminator or think of the original RoboCop. You could hear that music in your head, but nowadays, I mean, you can't, like, can you think, if you close your eyes right now, can you think of a song from the Avengers? Can you think of a song from Avatar? You know what I mean? Like, you can't. It's just not something that works. But, you know, you think RoboCop and you're like, oh, hell yeah. Dun, 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 dun. You know, you think of Predator. It's doo, 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 doo. You know, like, it just automatically, like, slaps you in the head. And I think building those types of motifs that go along with an image, that kind of thing, is something that's really a spirit of the 80s. That, you know, and into the 90s, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I'll talk about it forever if you don't stop.
To me, like, I'm not much of a movie guy, but for me, it was like watching shows like Street Hawk, and I'm really dating myself now. And, you know, even like Knight Rider, Street Hawk, Airwolf, you know, you just getting on a car or a motorcycle and just driving and, you know, kicking ass, you know?
Yeah. Airwolf.
Yeah.
Michael Jan Vincent's.
You know, just shooting down a couple tanks and planes and shit. You know, that's the way it was done back in the day. You know, you just blew shit up and you didn't care.
we got money. Let's blow some shit up. Yeah. They were going to demolish this neighborhood anyways. Right. Delta Force Part 2. Let's do it.
That's it. So we have this persona, Street Cleaner. Now, obviously, all these movies and stuff seem to have had such a great influence on your persona. Where did it actually come from? Like, where did the moment arrive that you said, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to be this vigilante character, and he's just going to basically kick everybody's ass on a dark street, you know?
He dies a lot too, but then I just have to write another album where he's alive again somehow.
Does he die a lot?
I killed him in, I think, 2017. I killed him.
Oh my God. In Payback?
Yeah. No, Payback's 2014.
Okay.
I'd have to look because I killed him off, but I think what I did is I retconned it and I went back and I like rewrote some stuff. Shutdown was like, for me, it was kind of like the end, you know, like so I wrote an album every year, and Shutdown was the third one, and I was just kind of like ending it, you know, kind of thing, and where he dies at the end or something because his arc is over.
Was that Dead in the Water?
No, that was oh yeah, Payback 2, that's the one. So that's where Payback 2, I don't even know my own facts. This is embarrassing.
I have Payback 2 2017. I have Dead in the Water as one of the songs that I'd love to go ahead and just give this a listen if this was indeed your death scene, but I don't want to play it if it's not your death scene. I want to play your death scene because I want to immediately start the interview. I want to kill off Street Cleaner and then like watch him magically come back to life and continue the interview. Could we just humor my little moment that I need to have right now?
Let's do it. We're doing this.
All right. So, but was it Dead in the Water? I don't even know. At this point, you wrote the damn song.
So we did this story arc thing, the first album. So you had asked earlier, like, what had started the Street Cleaner.
Yes, I'm project. Digressing all over the place here. Let's back it up.
I was working on writing a video game soundtrack for Creaky Lantern Games, and this is in 2012.
Whoa.
And we created this thing where it was much more easy and productive for me to write the soundtrack in the same room with the game's developer. And we were kind of like back to back and like just jamming. And he's, furiously slamming away writing code, and I'm furiously slamming away trying to write the soundtrack to this game and that kind of thing. And was talking about stuff, and I was like, well, my ultimate goal would be to write the soundtrack to a movie. And this is my buddy Brooks, he said, just do it. Just do it. And I was like, but there is no movie. And he's just like, so, like just do it and just write it. Just, come up with an idea in your head. So the first album is called Street Cleaner, only Street Cleaner. It was originally, Street Cleaner by Jesse Bishop because it was the soundtrack to the film Street Cleaner. And Street Cleaner it's just this term that had been used in a lot of movies. I really like 80s vigilante movies. It's a whole genre that almost disappeared completely. You really don't see them much anymore. I think we get about one a year now as far as vigilante movies go. I know that Eli Roth failed miserably at remaking Death Wish last year, and then the year before that we got a Jackie Chan vigilante movie. But we really don't get them, but they were very prevalent in the 80s. So
right.
It was just creating this whole like character of a cop that is trying to fix things within the system, but the system is failing him, so he has to go outside of the system, and came up with this whole idea and wrote the soundtrack to the movie. And then it was really fun, so I decided that was great, like let's do another one. And that's where Payback came from. Is Payback's the sequel, and that's where I spent a lot more time trying to come up with like, okay, what is the story arc to this, so we came up with the idea that, the whole album is the soundtrack to a movie that takes place over one night, much like the movie Falling Down takes place over the course of one day,
Right.
So my first track is Sundown, and the last track is
Sun Up.
Sun Up. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm really showing myself how
I just
how
took
well
a
I know
guess,
my
took a
stuff.
wild guess on that one, but
Yeah, no, my first song is Sundown and the last song is Daybreak. So
There you
it's
go.
just like, and yeah, so I was just trying to do that arc there, and then it just kept on going from there, what would be the sequel after that would be Shut Down, and that's more of an introspective kind of like what have I become kind of thing, and I tried to get a little bit more darker, play a little bit more emotional things. Yeah, it was Payback 2. I decided, that's when I killed the character Jack Slade, trying to just come up with like this last act of revenge kind of thing, like this character, what does he have to live for kind of thing. And it's a revenge story, songs like Axe to Grind and stuff like that. But Dead in the Water was definitely not the song that I thought was going to be the standout from that.
yeah, I mean, you do have some really great standouts from each album that, I'd like to just go ahead and play a couple of these. Now, from the Payback album, I would like to just go ahead and drop this track, Nightlife. Can you kind of set up the tone for that? Because not only is it a cool track, but it's really one of your number one, as far as Spotify, it's like your number one song on Spotify. People seem to really gravitate towards it.
That came out in 2014, Nightlife. That was a track that I had written. I was trying to do like a story arc as like a movie would do, and a movie soundtrack isn't all one tone. It'll have the club scene, it'll have the fight scene, that kind of thing, so in this one, like the big fight scene would be track 6, Outnumbered, but through the story arc there would be like a club scene as the sun goes down and the neon lights start turning on at, eventually, people start partying it up. And that's where Nightlife comes from. I just wanted to write a good old synthwave track.
Yeah.
And I was really, really, really honored to have a buddy of mine really, really help out with that searing synth solo in the later part of the song. His name's Kubosh. He's from the band Arm Cannon. He hopped in there and he really made that song with that solo there at the end.
Well, nice.
So yeah, that's where Nightlife came from.
Great stuff. I tell you what, let's go ahead and give it a listen. And that was Nightlife by Street Cleaner. Yeah, so that was more or less kind of a lighter fare. That was really, I guess, maybe before you started getting your hands dirty. And I guess after that, each album kind of encompasses a little story, right? Is that pretty much how you laid it out?
Yeah. Everything's got a little story to it. I'll put up a little write-up, something kind of a small 2-3 sentence thing to try to, just encapsulate,
give it some context.
Idea of, without going into the whole like spelling it out. It's the old adage, the show don't tell kind of thing. Like what people can imagine in their heads is much more vibrant and colorful than what I can explain to them in words. So it's better to do it that way. And lucky, I've been so freaking lucky that so many people have listened to things and have created their own stories. I've had people send me messages where they're like, hey, how did this happen? Where did this come from? And that kind of thing. And where'd you get the idea for this? And this is what I imagined in my head. And it's just really one of the most rewarding things in the world, is to have an idea like that, especially with a concept that's kind of hard to explain. Imagine explaining to somebody like, oh, I want to write a soundtrack to a movie
right.
that's from the 80s that doesn't exist.
Yep.
And
like,
hey, look at it. Like, so like people understand, like, don't underestimate folks,
Yeah, the people get it. They get the concept. My favorite album, I think, is the original album, Payback. I just really think you kind of covered so many bases with it, with all the different styles. And it's really got a little something for everyone. And I guess 2017 was when you had Payback 2. And that's the one that we want to talk about where you die. And
Jack Slade dies. Yeah, Jack Slade. He was the cop known as Street Cleaner, and the ex-cop. He realized how horrible his system was, and his eyes were open to the confines of crime within the system. So he had to leave the system and become Street Cleaner and clean up the streets.
I love it. It's just such a badass story, and it's original too. I don't really know of any other artist out there that has this whole vigilante thing. Like, I know there's Pilot's great, but it's not like a vigilante type of thing. You're just really get this whole character, and like, I really wish that somebody would make a video game about it.
Right.
Before we go ahead and drop our next track, I want to talk a little bit about your game development experience, because I know you got the game coming out, but it sounds like you've been really doing games all along. It's kind of like been part of your bread and butter, I guess, right? You've been working on soundtracks for games and all that for what, 4 years?
I've worked with one developer. So I've licensed music to games, but as far as writing original music for games, I've worked with one developer, and I was really lucky to meet my buddy Brooks, who is an indie dev. And I think that our skill sets have complemented each other, and together, we've been able to accomplish some really cool stuff. We've worked on a few projects. Not every project goes all the way to completion, I think maybe the second one I was lucky enough to work on came out on Xbox 360, called Eternum, and it's like a bullet hell shooter. And that was really awesome. That was a fun project to do. Writing for games is a lot different than anything else, really. On the outside looking in, it's like, oh yeah, that seems pretty easy. But then once you actually get into it, there's so many factors and so many variables and things that it's actually really quite challenging, but rewarding at the same time.
Right.
So like, it's really hats off to the people that can write a good game soundtrack that also works really well as a standalone album. If you look at people like Mick Gordon, for example, his music's pretty amazing because like it works so well in game, and then I could totally listen to it while driving to the park,
Right.
So
Indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, I've done some other work for Creaky Lantern games. Like, ultimately, I don't know, it's what I want to do, man. It's hard to explain. It was such an honor to be able to work on a game about Street Cleaner. It's not a game featuring Street Cleaner. It's literally called Street Cleaner, the video game, and we came up with the idea that, like, how like in the 80s you would buy a video game and you would get home and you'd be like, all right, well, you're playing, let's say like Nightmare on Elm Street, like the video game. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm Freddy Krueger? So you're playing as Freddy Krueger, but then you're like running around like punching spiders and stuff. Like, when does Freddy Krueger punch spiders?
Right.
Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what, or you're playing like pretty much any of these licensed games, and they're so off model, they're so like, wait, so Spider-Man's fighting giant sewer rats? Like, this is not a thing that I remember. So that's what we decided to do, is like make a in-universe game. So this game is the game that came out in 1988 that is an accompaniment to the film that also came out in 1988. You know what I mean? Like, the game sticks to the confines and constraints mostly of what the NES and other gaming systems could do at the time, especially when it comes to pixel density and sprite size and color palettes and stuff like that. Obviously, there's some liberties taken with the overall screen shape and size and frame rates and stuff like that, and controller supports and stuff. But ultimately, we're trying to build one of the most authentic 1988 video game experiences that we possibly can, and at the same time, use current game mechanics that weren't implemented back then, like checkpoints and that kind of thing. And then also at the same time, we're making the most accessible game that we can, in that anybody can play it. It's not going to be exclusive to just people who are good at a certain type of game or whatever. Its controller support will support absolutely almost any controller you could possibly think of. If it's a controller that works on any Steam game and PC, it's going to work on this game. And there's controller customizations for people that need, that have special needs.
Yeah, I saw that.
We even have a colorblind mode for people that are colorblind, so that they'll be able to actively, see and understand what's going on that normally other games wouldn't. As well as, just overall difficulty. If you want the good old challenge of a good 1980s NES game, then that's the game vanilla mode right there. But then there's also like a hardcore mode if you're really into that kind of stuff. Then there's also assist mode. If you're just really not that good at games, but you want to go through and see all the sights, look at all the animations, just experience the story and the music and all that, then by all means, assist mode is available from the get-go. So you can just hop right in there and turn that on and just experience the game.
Nice.
We're not trying to gatekeep or anything. We're trying to go for the most accessible game, period. At the same time, it's Street Cleaner, the game, man. I'm fighting giant rats in the sewers. I'm taking out massive giant squids with my baseball bat.
It's got some cool bosses too, yeah. We have the trailer going on our YouTube page, and yeah, you got some badass bosses. You're swinging your bats. You're killing some rats. You're hopping on your motorbike. It's pretty badass, man. I really dig the graphics. I dig that old Nintendo NES style 8-bit graphics, and it just looks authentic. It reminds me of like Ninja Gaiden or Double Dragon, those, like, I guess it wasn't like a pure it was a side scroller, but it wasn't a platformer.
It was a side scroller. It was a little bit different. Yeah, we're really going for the whole Shatterhand, Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania 3, Batman type thing.
Batman, yes, that's a perfect example. But yeah, you definitely nail the aesthetic, man. It takes me back.
Brooks, the head honcho over there at Creaky Lantern Games, he's a genius. He really spearheaded everything, and he had laser focus on what he wanted to accomplish with this project, and he's just really knocking it out of the park. And it's crazy to think, that I could talk forever about it, man, but it's really awesome. I just can't wait for the game to be, available, which it's coming along real soon. Before you know, we've got 2 weeks left on our Kickstarter right now.
Nice.
The game's going to be done no matter what. It's going to be done this fall no matter what. The Kickstarter is just for, if you want a physical copy in your hand, that's how you're going to get it, is through Kickstarter.
Oh, nice.
If you want to hold a physical copy of the game on disc, obviously, DRM free. If you want to hold, a game guide or a soundtrack, that's what you're getting through Kickstarter. Other than that, we've already hit, as of this morning, I think we're at 421% of our goal. So
shoot.
It's doing great. Yeah, it's doing great. We also have a stretch goal on there where I kind of rebooted Street Cleaner in 2018, at the beginning of 2018, and so the Street Cleaner in the game is Street Cleaner 2.0. And we came up with the idea, if we meet our stretch goal, then we're going to put Street Cleaner 1.0 as a playable character as well.
Nice.
And that's the original Street Cleaner from the original album covers and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so get on it, people. 80s guy community, go get yourself some Street Cleaner.
If you've listened this far.
If you've listened this far, you got to get the game. All right, we're going to drop some more music here. Now, obviously, I want to talk a little bit about your live performances too, but let's go ahead and drop a track real quick because people want to hear some music, man. People want to hear some Street Cleaner. Let's go ahead and jump back to this Payback 2. Again, I guess this came around 2017, and this is one of my favorite tracks. This is called Dead in the Water, and here it is. All right, so that was Dead in the Water by Street Cleaner. And the cool thing I like about this song is it has a lot of interplay with like a classical piano interlude versus like these dark tones. And that's one of the really huge standouts of the entire album that I think was just phenomenally done. The way that you interwoven, it's almost like the darkness and the lightness of the track. There's a lot of contrast in there. Was that something you kind of like intended on doing from the beginning, or was it kind of something that you said, this looks cool? Or how did that whole classical piano interplay happen?
I'm a big fan of a guy named Bernard Herrmann, and he wrote a lot of music. He pretty much changed the way music was written for movies. He wrote a lot of soundtracks. Like, I think a lot of films would use music, but they would use pre-existing music or classical music, and it didn't always sync with the movie, you know? Mm-hmm. And his idea was he had a studio built where they would play the movie and he would conduct his studio orchestra to the rhythm of the film. And it was really awesome. So he did, The Day the Earth Stood Still and Psycho and a lot of Hitchcock films. He ended up doing Taxi as well later in his life. But he had this thing that he did in a lot of his films, was this arcing crescendo. He would keep pace, so he wouldn't slow the song down, but he would just take levels down and he would exchange instruments, and you get a different feeling by playing things differently. And that was one of those songs, there's always that in films, there's always that 2/3 of the way Dark Night of the Soul kind of act where the I can't do it, yes I can kind of moment. And so that's what Dead in the Water was. It starts out really slow and boom, 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 and it builds and builds, and then it drops down again, and then it comes back even louder and heavier than ever with that great big buildup that happens about 2/3 of the way through the song. Yeah, it's just something I was trying to do. I had a movie in my head, and I was writing to that. I had these ideas in my head of where people were going and what was happening or whatever. Music has always been a way just to convey emotion, Right. And so that was the emotion I was going for, is the triumphant, return, kind of sad and melancholy that ends at a really high note. And I was, like I said earlier, I was really surprised that was the standout track for that release. It ended up being used. Dr. Disrespect had used it a lot, wherever the heck he is right now.
Yeah, he's subtle.
He used it to hype himself up, and it was a real honor to see him use that song to hype himself up and to oh yeah, gets me in the mode kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
He's a cool dude, man. Yeah. He really is. I want to talk a little bit about your live performances, because I have to say that the couple times that I've seen you perform live, you just seem to really love performing, and you seem to have this interactivity with the crowd that not a lot of performers have. That you're constantly motioning and doing cool things with lasers and jumping out in the crowd.
You better watch out, I'll pull you up on stage.
But it's really cool. Like, your performance at Neon is a perfect example where you just jumped down into the crowd and started running around, and a lot of people really are taken aback and surprised that someone can have that level of interactivity. I think it's obviously something that you really thrive on. You must really love performing and everything like that.
Nothing's better than playing a show where you're in a room full of people that also want to be there.
Right.
I guess that's the best way I could put it. I really like playing shows. I've played a lot of shows in my life, but I was always in someone else's band.
Right.
Or, I was always in the back somewhere. I've always either played keyboards, synthesizers, or drums, so I've always been behind people, and I've never been a focal point. And so
yeah, people are there to see Street Cleaner, and
yeah,
it's got to be a rush, and you really just seem to be in the moment, which it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, because the crowd feeds off of the performer feeds off the crowd. And I think that's why you seem to have such successful shows, is because people can see you really getting into it, so they started getting into it. And it's just exciting to have you up there on stage, and the lasers and all that crazy stuff too.
The lasers thing, the fog machine thing. I put a lot of tender love and care into that fog machine, and I got to use just the right fluid and that kind of thing. I spend a lot of time trying to craft a good live experience, and I think a lot of folks have a show that hinges on one aspect. Like they'll spend so much time dialing in a background video, and then the venue doesn't have their projectors broken or something like that. And it's just like, well, that's what, you put all your eggs in that one basket kind of thing. And I think for me, and I do a little bit of everything, so I'm trying to really get a good experience going. My live setup has changed over the years, but last year it's been a wireless keytar that has given me complete freedom on stage. I literally don't have anything on stage anymore, just me and some monitors. So I'm able to move around and interact with people, and there's no barrier between me and an audience. And, and that's not the way everybody can and will perform, that's just what I choose to do.
Right. One of my favorite songs from your performances is gotta be this track right here, which I'm going to go ahead and play this one right now, and we'll talk about it a little bit. But this one's called Bitches Leave, and it's just amazing. So let's just drop it right now, and then we'll talk about it. Here we go.
Bitches leave.
All right, once again, that was Bitches Leave by Street Cleaner. Now, man,
That's a problematic title.
that is it's a fun one for the whole family to enjoy. And it is a crowd pleaser, though. People really love that song.
The drop in the beginning is one of the most fulfilling things in my life is during that drop when I hear just dozens of people shout "bitches leave" as loud as they can. Great. I've got videos that are just great. I want to put together just a collection of people shouting "bitches leave" during that drop. I think I'll do that. I'll just chop up all the videos and have just that moment over and over again.
Now I would like to talk about, what do we want to talk about?
You want to do the Q&A from the YouTube?
You know what? Let's do the Q&A. That sounds fun. I love the 80s guy community, and they come up with some really interesting questions. Some of the questions, I'm like, I don't even know where you guys come up with this stuff, but some of these are pretty much dead on the nose. So let's just dive in head first, and let's just go for it. So I'm going to try to read some of these names. I might not get some of them right, but I'll do my best. We have a good Russian fan base, too. So Akuma wants to know, do you like Street Fighter? And if so, who is your favorite character from Street Fighter? Who's your go-to guy?
Listen here, Akuma. I'm a red-blooded American. I love Street Fighter. Yeah, I like Street Fighter. I like the Ryukin fighting types. I like Dan. I like Akuma.
Nice.
But I think my favorite character is Violent Kin from SVC Chaos. And I actually have an arcade cabinet. I have a Neo Geo with SVC Chaos in it. So, yeah, you better believe I like Street Fighter.
Damn. I was not expecting that. All right, so Too Many Tentacles wants to know what he plans to do to clean up all the crime in this stinking city.
I have a feeling that Too Many Tentacles is an insider for a secret crime organization.
I think so.
I don't give away my secrets, man.
He actually sounds like one of the villains you would probably end up taking on at like the end of your game.
Too Many
or
Tentacles, man. I don't want to know you. What the hell?
Yeah, so we're not giving up.
I'm not giving you my plans.
All right, so
thank you, Too Many Tentacles.
All right, so now this is one of our Russian listeners here. Now, Cyberthing wrote down banana chocolate, but it says it sounds like bananvaya chocolada. So he wants to know, will we hear anything about the Slade? There's also a translation thing, I'm sure, too.
I'm reading it here myself. It says, will we hear anything else about the Slade? Is a wild Jack Slade reference, and he is truly street cleaner. All songs from this album are explosive and motivating. What exactly inspired you to make this? I do not want to guess. For the wild Jack Slade reference, I think he's talking about the video I made. There was a television show, the old and goldies time, called Shotgun Slade. And it was about like a old Western cowboy, show that ran for, I believe, one season about a sheriff named Jack Slade who, cleaned up the garbage in his town, and it was just so symbiotic with what I had been working on. So I had made a spaghetti western version of one of my songs, and I put it to a Shotgun Slade video. Nice. I think that's what he's asking, is the old cowboy, the old wild Jack Slade, a reference to, is that actually Street Cleaner?
Oh, okay.
I think that's what he's saying.
All right, so he's basically saying the reference is Street Cleaner, kind of a reference to the old Jack Slade, I guess.
Not intentionally.
Well, there you go.
It's a case of one of those things where I should have Googled the name before I started using it, but we'll play into it.
There you go. It was your idea all along.
Yeah, so I hope that answers his question.
All right, so we have our next question here. Here's a good one. Mr. 95 Noodles, love the name. Can we look forward to any collabs with any other banger artists in the future?
I don't know. I'm sure stuff's gonna happen. Yeah. We'll see. I keep on calling up Kanye. He hasn't called me back yet. We'll see what happens. That'd be cool. I'll produce the next weekend track. That's fine.
All right, so Daredevil fan wants to know, he was, I believe, referring to the album cover for, is that Annihilation? Because I can't read.
Yeah, Annihilation, yeah.
Okay.
That's Andrew Tremblay. He is one of the greatest artists that I've been lucky enough to work with. He's one of those artists, like, I've seen his work and it is just astounding over and over again. And for me, it was a real badge of honor to be able to work with him. And I just felt so privileged to be able to work with Andrew on that. And he's one of the people that shares my vision, I guess you could say. I didn't even have to say anything. He knew what I was talking about, when I said, I want to, he just finished my sentences for me because he knew exactly what we were going for. And then, that album artwork came out just beyond any expectations I could possibly ever have. And on top of that, he did a full back piece to the vinyl. If you have the vinyl, there's a full back piece to it. And there's an entire gatefold comic book as well.
Amir wants to know what your favorite 80s movie is. You got to have a favorite, right?
Oh, RoboCop.
Yeah.
RoboCop is my favorite movie of all time.
I gotta watch that again.
Yeah,
it's been so such a long time.
RoboCop, and then my second favorite movie is also RoboCop.
Nice.
Yeah.
RoboCop 1, RoboCop 2.
Just RoboCop.
How you feel about just the series?
I love the original RoboCop. That is a movie that has just covered in the most glorious patina of cynicism. And I love it. It's so good. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. And honestly, it's a movie that cannot exist outside of its time. That movie would never be made today. It would have never been made before when it was made. It's just, it had to have happened exactly when it happened. I think it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. And I'll watch it anytime, any day of the week. I'll put it on. Love it.
Andy McGuffin wants to know, what synthesizers do you use? What is your go-to synthesizer when you're making all your badass music?
Man, I like cheap stuff. I like stuff that I can get my hands on. And I have people ask me, what's your go-to synthesizer and stuff. If you're talking hardware, honestly, it's whatever I am playing with at the moment. And I've got a bunch of old stuff, mostly 90s synths. My go-to for the longest time, I bought brand new, was a Korg MS-2000. I had bought that with money that I was supposed to go to college with. And I've gotten rid of stuff. I've got new stuff. I've swapped stuff out, but that MS-2000 is always stuck around. And that's the one that's always plugged in. It's always on and ready to go. Other than that, I've got a Yamaha FB01 that I would say I've used to pretty much define my sound versus anything else. I only stopped using it very recently, but I've used this Yamaha FB01. It's a little sound module, little 10-bit sound module that's kind of like the DX7. But yeah, I use a lot of soft synths too, so never limit yourself, Silent 1, Massive X are both great synthesizers. So I would say don't limit yourself, you just get good at what you got. Don't say I can't do it because I don't have X. Instead, say I'm going to do this, I'm just going to get really good at it. Use what you got.
Use what you got. Words to live by. All right. We have Igor Stefanchuk wants to know, what DAW do you use?
Dun, dun, dun.
The golden question, right?
Yeah, I use a DAW called Hammerhead. It only runs on 386, and that's Windows 3.1.
Nice.
Build. No, I'm an FL Studios user.
Okay.
I switched over to FL Studios primarily a few years back. Yeah, and that's mostly what I use. For the Street Cleaner video game soundtrack, I had to switch DAWs, and I wrote the soundtrack entirely in a program called Famitracker, and it is a tracker software that writes music in Nintendo sound format files.
Nice. So
I'm actually writing real songs into a file format that can actually be played on a Nintendo hardware, so that was one of the things
awesome,
I was trying
man.
to make this game as authentic as possible, and writing the music in the same format that, in the same way that would have been used to write, the Batman soundtrack or, the Sunsoft game.
Can you get that burnt to a cartridge? That would be like the ultimate merch, man. Holy crap. The old gray Nintendo box, like the old cartridge. Holy crap.
You know who does that? Watch out for Snakes. He's got a Nintendo cartridges at his merch booth.
Does he?
Yeah. That guy's awesome, by the way.
I love, he's the nicest guy too. He's super awesome.
Hey, so I'm looking at these questions, and I like this one. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the name just because I think that's what they call. Is that Cyrillic? Is that what that's called?
Cyrillic.
Russia, listen to you. Music have no borders. Man, whoever you are, hell yeah, brother or sister, or person, hell yeah, person.
Music have no borders.
Yeah, music have no borders.
That is true, though. This is fun. All right, so we're gonna round this up with one last question here, and I'm gonna do my best to paraphrase this. Google Translate, we love you. C.S. Brooks wants to know all about retrowave music. Do you think that the artists will continue to innovate and make awesome things, or do you think we've reached a point of saturation where everything just gets played out, repetitive, wah-wah?
So here's what I think. I think you think about it too much. Like, just have fun, man. Like, something cool comes out you like listening to, don't think about if somebody else is, trying to drink their Kool-Aid or what's going on, just have fun and enjoy what's going on, Like, I don't know when it comes to saturation and all that stuff and innovation. I can tell you that I myself, I'm going to keep on doing what I do, and I'm going to keep on making music for myself. I'm going to write what I like, and I'm going to create what I have in my heart, and that's what I'm going to keep on doing. And if it gets to the point where people move on to listening to something that I'm not even, I can't even imagine what's next, like if everybody moves on to listening to, EDM polka music in 10 years or 5 years or 2 years or whatever, and they're not into what I'm doing anymore, I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing.
Hell yeah, man.
And I think that's just another thing is if people look at genres and they look at boxes, they want to put things into boxes. You know what? People don't talk about legitimacy, and legitimacy is a box. People that are writing music that's true to themselves, that's real to themselves, and you really recognize it when you look at artists and you look at people that are releasing things that are not so fitting the mold, like I think a prime example is Protector 101 released an album last year called Killbots, and it was really a change of form. Protector 101's one of the founders of Dark Synth and Synthwave. He's been there from day one. And, and sorry if you're listening, Protector 101, I'm putting that on you, but it's what I believe. He's been there this whole time. And a lot of people, cite him as somebody that's really inspired them. And for him to really take such a left turn with Killbots and write such a very interesting, aggressive, non-synthwave album, I think that's the type of risks that people have to take. And for him, that's so much more legitimate than somebody who's just trying to use the same tempo, the same scales, the same patches, the same formula just to put out another album, Right. Let's write what's in our hearts, and let's put that kind of stuff out, and let's keep on going. Don't write because, okay, this is what people are into now. Write because that's what you want to do. Write that type of music. Not just music, but like everything, if you want to write trap polka or whatever, EDM polka, then do it, but do it because that's what you want to do. And I think that's the long form of that answer right there too. The short form is, I don't know.
But no, I think that beautifully sums it up. Just keep following your heart, doing what you're doing, and make the kind of music you want to make.
Be true to yourself.
Be true to your school, man. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. This was such a pleasure. I'm so glad we finally got to talk about badass music and badass video games, and go out and kickstart this sumbitch. Get yourself a Street Cleaner game, get the CD, and yeah, man, I'm very excited for the music that you have, the music that's coming out, and the game, and I can't wait to see you live because Neon's gonna happen, man. I know it. I would like to play your newest single right now because it's totally badass. And before we drop it, it's called Sewer Shark. You want to set it up?
This is Sewer Shark. This is the soundtrack to the Sega CD and 3DO game Sewer Shark if I were to have written the music to Sewer Shark.
Nice. I knew there had to be a story because as soon as I said the word Sewer Shark, I knew you were talking about that. And
yeah,
it's badass. So we're going to go ahead and drop it. And thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you guys for having me, and I really appreciate it. And honestly, like, the 80s Guy channel is the place.
Yeah.
The place. Let me do a little promo there. The 80s Guy channel is the place. All right, thanks,
Perfect.
Dennis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jesse. And here it is. Gonna leave you with Sewer Shark right here. My name is Dennis. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.